On the day Lee's first love returned to the States, I set fire to our home. I left with nothing but the twin kids she'd given me. When she was gravely ill and needed a kidney, I didn't hesitate to donate mine. Yet she believed I had done it all to marry her, blaming me for breaking up her romance with her first love. Now I've finally given up, faked my death, and left for good. But when she heard of my supposed death, she completely fell apart. The Harvest Moon Festival is a day for family reunions and, for us, it's also the kid's birthday. After they begged Lee over and over, she finally agreed to come home for once. She'd casually mentioned wanting a home-cooked meal, so despite being feverish, I pushed through and made a full spread of dishes. The food is long cold now, and the kids are still up, holding on to their cake, refusing to go to sleep. Lee still hasn't shown. My head is swimming, and after popping a handful of painkillers, I step outside. I know where she is. Whenever she's restless, she always goes to her girlfriends to vent. I find her at the estate. Soft lights glow from the yard where she's clinking glasses with her friends. "So Chase Maddox is back in town," one of them says, laughing. "What's your plan for Max Caldwell, the one you brought in to help your family, and those twins of yours?" I reach up to knock but freeze mid-air, my hand stopping in mid-air as I hear Lee's response. "I'll divorce him. He can take the kids. No need to make Chase uncomfortable." Her answer is cold, decisive, and just as I expected. After all, if it hadn't been for Gramps Dawson pushing her to marry me on his deathbed, Chase would have never left for Europe. She used his departure as her own protest, vanishing on our wedding day and turning me into the town's biggest joke. After a year of marriage without seeing each other, we had one impulsive night that ended with her pregnant with the twins. As soon as they were born, Lee had the nurse take them away without a second look. To her, they were proof of her betrayal of the one she truly loved. When she promised to come home for the kid's birthday, I thought maybe she was finally softening. But as silence settled over the night, one of her friends spoke up. "Honestly, your husband's been good to you. Even after his family went bankrupt, he helped get your company off the ground, drinking with clients until he had stomach ulcers. All to see you succeed." "Please," another friend snorted. Without him, Lee would have done fine on her own. If he hadn't butted in and donated that kidney, her grandpa wouldn't have forced her to marry him. Chase and Lee could have been together all these years. He's nothing but a freeloader who thinks he's still some kind of big shot. Just dump him already. Hearing that, I felt my heart clench as Lee spoke again, cool and dismissive. "Let's drop the subject." "Cheers." Another friend gave a sly smile and teased, "Max Caldwell is handsome, I'll give him that. And if you don't want him anymore, why not let us sample what he's got to offer? Just treat him like a model on demand." Amid the laughter, Lee silently raised her glass, downing her champagne in one go. My life has rarely gone as planned. It veers off course, drifting in and out of freezing snowstorms. I first met Lee Dawson at a charity gala held by my family's foundation. Back then, I was still the Caldwell heir, and she was just a young startup owner who had used a friend's ticket to get in. Among the auction items that night was one of my own paintings. People were offering high bids, hoping for a way into the Caldwell circle. But tucked in a quiet corner was one girl completely absorbed in my painting. The piece, called Mother, was my proudest work. A tear fell from her eye as she gazed at it, unaware that I was watching her. When she finally noticed me, she took a few steps back, looking at me timidly. "You're very talented, Mr. Caldwell. But I can't afford it," she said softly. It was like a gentle breeze touched my heart, setting it racing. Later, I learned that Lee had lost her parents young and had been raised by her grandfather. She'd been deeply moved by my painting. I gifted it to her that night, beginning 6 years of unrequited love. Lee was always composed, distant, never fully rejecting me but never reciprocating. And so, I kept trying to win her over, connecting her to resources and watching her company grow. But then the Caldwell empire crumbled, leaving me as the sole survivor. Physically alive, but that was all. Despite Aunt Caroline's protests, I donated my kidney to Lee. The complications nearly killed me, and I had to abandon my art. Gramps Dawson knew the debt his family owed me, and on his deathbed, he forced Lee to marry me. Reluctantly, she agreed, with the condition that I'd move into her household. Only after we were married did I learn that her heart belonged to her first love. Her husband would always be someone else. That year, at the Harvest Moon Festival, Lee came home drunk for the first time. I'd only meant to help her to bed, but she clung to me, her hands wandering over my body. "Kiss me," she whispered. One impulsive act, one monumental mistake. When I woke up, she slapped me across the face, her eyes full of tears. Marrying me wasn't enough? You had to go and do something so low? I should have left then. Exhausted, I returned to the estate, the prison of my marriage to Lee. Sure enough, the kids were still up. They ran to me, clinging to my leg. "Daddy, is Mom back too?" They ran to the door, only to turn around disappointed, heads hanging. Piper's face reddened, and he burst into tears. "Mommy doesn't want us, does she?" My heart clenched painfully. I knelt down and hugged them. "I want you both. Will you come with me?" I couldn't tell them that, to Lee, they were just obstacles on her road to happiness. Arlo, ever the little grown-up, patted M.'s shoulder. "Don't worry, Daddy. Wherever you go, we'll go too." I finally got them to sleep and stumbled into the bathroom, letting the shower drown out my sobs. Becoming their father hadn't brought them a moment of happiness. Lee had wanted to abort them as soon as she found out, only stopping when the doctor told her she'd never be able to have children again. She still dreamed of having kids with Chase. When the twins were born, she refused to even look at them, calling them disgusting. I raised them on my own, becoming both father and mother. Outside, she denied their existence. If they tried to call her mom, she'd scold them as if they were strangers. Leaving is freedom for all of us. But maybe, out of guilt, Lee remembered her promise to the kids. Late that night, she came back. I was packing when I heard her cold voice behind me.